All right, so folks, we're at the part of the demo center now where we want to do a hardware walk around. We're going to start with one of the PageWide models here, and this is all throughout the portfolio. So it's going to be apples to apples as you move up the portfolio in terms of doing things like loading supplies, replenishing the ink tanks, etc. We have what we call post-scan editing on these large high-resolution touchscreens that support pinch graphics. So what we're able to do at a very high level, I can describe it as we can do the post-scan editing before we ever commit it to a digital file, and that saves a lot of steps downstream that would historically have been done after you've actually captured the image. Sometimes when you do that, you're left with, oh, gee, I wish that I had not chopped off the top part of this document. Now you have to make your way back to the scanner and do all of it over again. One of the things that end users really, really like, and the feedback that we've gotten has been so overwhelmingly positive about these devices, is that we can check all of this stuff before we ever commit it to a digital file. So I always like to show that. But I'll start with some of the things that make these devices special. Now, the PageWide has more than 100 patents on it, and most of those were designed to make the end user experience the most pleasant that it can be. Things like how easy it is to replace a roll of media. Things like how non-messy it is to replace the inks. We don't have to wear any gloves. You're not going to wear home with you the materials on the supply that you were replaced in, etc. So what I always like to do during a hardware walk-around demonstration is show the ease of use of some of these things. So what we'll start with is looking at the replacement of, let's say, the inks, for example. If I touch on the touch screen, the ink submenu, I can actually tell it that I want to replace the supply. And rather than having a pamphlet that goes missing into somebody's desk drawer, never to be seen again, it's all here on an animated display telling the operator exactly what they need to do. So once you invoke this, you can basically replace the supply, no need for gloves. It's not a messy process. If you've ever replaced an SD card in a digital camera, for example, you know when you push the little card in, you get that affirmative click and it locks in? Then you push it again and you get that affirmative click and it releases it. That's exactly what this mechanism is like. And putting the new supply in looks like this, and you're done. The supplies have a chip on it that will show that it's in warranty. It'll show if the materials have expired or reached their expiration date. So it's a really intuitive system that can be gathered right from the front panel. So from there, I'll look at what replacing the media looks like on these guys. I've done this a few times, so I don't have to really look at the screen. But again, you have those animated illustrations showing you how to do it. Now on this unit, we have 2 rolls per drawer, and I've got a maximum of 2 drawers, 4 rolls. So whereas it comes standard with just the 2 rolls, we can max this thing out at 4. So this is what it looks like to replace the supplies in this. So we've got the 2 rolls here, and they're on a 3-inch core, so we can hold up to 650-foot rolls of media. That media is less expensive than the smaller rolls per running foot of media. I don't know why it's like that, but I guess it might be the packaging, the shipping, et cetera. But these supplies for these more heavy-duty machines that are more productive centric in their design intent are going to be less expensive to operate. And even though the equipment costs more to buy, the ongoing cost of operation will be less as you move up the portfolio. So the way we replace these supplies is simply this. We don't have a spindle that runs through the machine. Instead, we have these self-homing, self-centering hubs that live in the equipment and stay in there. So all I have to do is take the roll and just set it somewhere in the middle. Then I'll squeeze the hubs together like so, and then feed the front edge of the media into the machine. There's a sensor that sees it, moves it up to the front. Now, if it was a brand new roll of paper, what I could do is press and hold switches 1 and 2 for rolls 1 and 2 respectively, and get a clean cut. Now, what that means is if I had a brand new roll and I had torn the tape off of the leading edge of the first page, now all of a sudden all I have to do is make that one clean cut, and the first page that comes out won't have a damaged edge. So loading the rolls of media is very easy in these devices. When you're finished, we'll basically just close the drawer and finish and check it. All of the media profiles live on the front panel, so if you jettison one rollout and replace it in favor of another type of media, you simply tell it, okay, now instead of 20-pound bond paper, we've put a heavyweight coated or one of the poster substrates or one of the over 150 different substrates that these printers will work with. One of the other things that I always like to talk about with these, the space-saving design with this integrated top stacker, it can hold up to 100 sheets of media, and it is space-saving in that it can be pushed to just a couple of inches off the back wall. In a lot of environments where space is at a premium, this is a real godsend because they don't necessarily have room to have a flat stacker that lives 3 to 4 feet behind the printer and needs another foot or two of clearance to the wall. So even though this is a large piece of equipment, it is pretty ergonomic in terms of what it can do versus how much space it swallows up in the environment. By the way, folks, just a quick note about this. That first use, the very first time we run a substrate, it cuts 3 little snips and does a mechanical check for the length, so the accuracy of the page length is taken into account, and it only has to do that once. After it's done it once, from now on, that substrate will never require having to repeat that step. But it does take just does take a minute. It's done now, so I'll hit OK here. And what I'm going to do is just print, I don't know, one of the demo prints that is self-contained on the unit. And I've sent 3 or 4 pages over, and we can show the speed at which the printer can operate. This model will do 10 architectural D prints, or 24 by 36 in 1 minute. We've got, on the other side of our demo room here, we've got one that will execute 20 of those prints, twice the speed. That's pretty neat to watch in action as the pages come flying through at true 1200 by 1200 DPI. Now you can see we're well underway here. We're on page 2 of 4, I think. So one of the things that I like to show when I'm doing a hardware demo is one of these CAD drawings where we have a vector overlay that lives on top of a shaded area. And the way that this is designed to work, and CAD operators really enjoyed this, is the shaded area denotes that, hey, underneath or on top of this is an area of interest that matters. But what I want to do is I want those vectors to separate themselves and be very legible and very clearly read. Now, when I do a half size of this, that 50% shaded area, I want it to maintain that percentage of grayscale. This is something that thermal inkjet printing has always had a decided advantage over toner-based systems. In the toner world, what happens is what's supposed to be a shaded background that sits back kind of melts into the area of interest that's supposed to be really clearly and legibly understood. And if you do a half size of that, that shaded area gets darker and it really melts together so that you start losing the ability to separate the two. We don't have that challenge in this world. So from the home screen, what I can do here is I'll go into the scan menu, and what you see over on the left is what we call quick sets. These are ready-made, and you can create your own. If you have scanning workflows that happen over and over again, you can easily go in and create your own so that at one touch, you can have all of the page transformational settings, you know, what you're scanning from, the resolution that you want to scan to, what file type you're going to scan to. It's really cool that you can set that up, and then you don't have to replicate those steps each time. So I'm just going to go with what we've selected here. We have scan to file destinations, including a printer storage, which is a section of the hard disk drive that's saved out. For small offices, this is so cool because there's no setup involved. Once it's on the network, you scan to file to that little hard disk drive section. Then the operator makes their way back to their desk and types in the IP address of the printer, and there they can retrieve their scans. They don't have to set up scan to file repositories. They don't have to do any of that. So for really small offices, that's a quick and easy way to do that. From there, we can scan to a USB thumb drive if it's allowed in the environment. We have the email. We can scan to email for those that know the particulars of their SNMP servers and have either the savvy or have somebody that they contract with that can set up their email scan destinations. We have the tried and true network folder structure that's been around for decades. And then finally, we have the My Home folder. This one's cool for people that are taking advantage of Active Directory and LDAP environments because the heavy lifting's already been done in creating the organizational unit. And now, for example, when I'm home, I can actually start typing in the first 2 letters of my last name, and my name will appear on the drop-down list, and I can quickly and easily select myself from the list. So I love to show that, and it's the flexibility of having all those destinations is really helpful. So I think what I'll do here for demonstration purposes is tell it that I want to use the hard disk drive section. Again, I get an animated illustration on the front panel showing me how to do this. The pages will go in face up on the scanning deck. Let's set this aside. What you notice here is it takes and scans the entire width of the drawing, and then it detects the edges and drills into it. Now this is where the fun starts. This is where we can do the post-scan editing. So what I can do here is I can click on Edit Page, and a little toolbar comes up. The first thing that I can do that I find really helpful is I can click this little grid pattern. It overlays a little square pattern so that I can find any vertical or horizontal line, and I can set the D-skew. So if I've had more than 1 cup of coffee, I'm probably gonna feed the thing in a little bit crooked. And what you can do with this is that before you ever commit this to a file, you can actually set the skew factor the way you want, and I can make that correction. Once you get it set, and by the way, it can go 5 degrees in either direction, which doesn't sound like much, it's a ton. So when you get this the way you want it, you can turn the grid pattern off. You can actually, if I wanted to, I can crop to a custom size. Let's demonstrate what that looks like. Since this supports pinch graphics, I can use my finger to set the size, the shape, and the location of the window of the area of interest that I want to capture. Now, CAD professionals love this because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll capture a raster and then they'll bring it in, import it into a CAD drawing, and all of the steps downstream to crop this thing and trim it away, now they're gone. They don't have to worry about that anymore. The last thing I like to show is you have to use your imagination here a little bit. This was a 24 by 36 or an architectural D, but had this been an E1, those are 30-inch by 42-inch drawings, and they are always read in landscape orientation so that the text is right reading instead of vertically reading, right? Problem is, I don't have a 42-inch wide scanner, I've got a 36. So I have to feed it in an orientation like, if you're using your imagination, like that. I'd have to send it in skinny edge first, and then somebody downstream would have to rotate this in order to save it into a usable format that I could then go and have it archived or have it used anywhere. What we can do here is we can actually, before we ever commit this to a digital file, we can have the rotational value set the way we want before we hit save it. The last piece of the puzzle is I have a control that I can fine tune the brightness and contrast. So I can punch up some lines that might have been faded on an older original document. I might also be able to bake away a little bit of background if it was an old dirty original and strike that sweet spot. In years past, you couldn't do any of that until you had already scanned it and determined that I can't rescue this drawing because there's either too much background or I've baked away too much background and now I've thrown some of the data out. So when you get the drawing just like you want it, you can click save. And in my case, I'm gonna finish this and it's gonna send it to the scan queue where I could make my way back to my desk, type in the IP address and grab it. Or if I'd used one of those other scan to file destinations. So that's a look at the main touch points that I always hit on for when we're showing the multifunction printers. The good news is for this scan workflow, you don't have to learn this and relearn it for all the different printers. It's the same on the XL3600, the T2600, the PageWide XL devices. Exact same user interface, exact same processes. All right, so now we'll look at a couple of differences as we move down the portfolio. This is the XT950. This has been a slam dunk for us. It has been so well adopted, partly because of the acquisition cost is really, really attractive to small offices. You can see it's a tiny little footprint. It only holds 1 roll of media, and that roll of media is much smaller. The ink tanks also are smaller capacity. It can hold up to a 300 milliliter tank which is a little more than half as much as the PageWide that we just showed you. And as a result of that, it's a good fit for folks that are doing a lesser volume. It's an entry-level machine. But what makes this thing really neat is that it's also got a tray that can hold the 8.5 by 11 stuff up to 11 by 17, actually. And if you're using a submission tool like HP Click, if you had a job that had interspersed A3 type content with the technical line drawings, it will smartly figure out, oh, he wants to send this to the tray and this to the roll, and it doesn't even matter if they're staggered. The way that the printer organizes that data and the way the HP Click software sends it is a very intuitive workflow that small offices love. It is also pigmented ink, and therefore it holds a 200-year archivability durability rating, the same as the PageWides and the same as the Z printers. So any of the pigmented stuff is going to meet and exceed all of the governmental requirements for that archivability durability. It's a neat little design here that can be made to tuck away and not be obtrusive if you're not in the act of printing. This little tray can actually extend up so that the pages, the long axis pages or the larger engineering drawings will go into the tray and flop over the edge. So it's a really clever design. And again, this has been really, really effective for us. Moving from there, the Z6 and Z9 printers, these are our technical printers. And they get their name from how many colors they have. The Z6 has a much wider gamut with its 6-color process than the 4-color process machines, so it's more graphically enabled. But one of the things where the real magic happens with our Z series printers is we have something called dual drop technology that has really been a home run for us. What it is it's a full-size drop neighbored by a half-size drop staggered all the way across. And what this lets us do is we can lean into the reflectivity and white point of any of the substrates that we print onto. And it uses how white and how shiny the paper is that we're printing onto to get colors that pop more. The color temperatures that we can hit with a 6-color process machine because of dual drop technology actually rival that our competitors are hitting with 8-color process machines. And then of course the Z9 is a 9-color machine, and it has even wider still gamut that it can hit. One of the Z printers that we placed into a frame shop where they wanted to print their own content directly onto canvas was done on one of these Z printers. So that's just one of the many use cases for our Z printers. These are big in GIS mapping, and because they're pigmented ink, they can be carried outside, they can be caught in the rain, and the ink won't just smear off of them like some of the dye-based solutions do. We still have some paper or some portfolio members like the T1600 and 2600 that use a mix of dye-based and pigment-based, and they do have their use cases, but these have the durability of having all 6 colors in the case of the Z6, a pigmented solution. And they're great for stuff like this. This is just one of the internal demo prints that you can show off. And I've printed it on the HP heavyweight coated material that we get from BMG. It's a really good all-purpose substrate that's not very expensive, but it hits a really good color gamut. We can hit great color temperatures with that media. Moving from there, this new edition is the XL3800. This one fits a really good niche between the high speed of the PageWide XL printers and the smaller footprint of its little brother, the XL3600 and obviously the T2600. Again, it's a 4-color process machine, and it's all pigmented inks, so it has that archivability, durability that meets and exceeds all of the governmental requirements. This has been a really, really good seller for us because it can do 6 architectural deprints in 1 minute. So for those sort of medium businesses that don't necessarily have to have the speed of the PageWide XL, this fills that gap nicely. And oh, by the way, it also has a scanning print head that goes back and forth. So what we can do is we can feather the ink in multiple passes. Therefore, we can hit a higher image quality on this one than we can with the one-pass printing of the PageWide XL technology. And then finally, we have an XL 5200. This is one of the production level machines that we have. It looks exactly like the other PageWide that we showed earlier, but this one is made so that it can dock with a high capacity stacker that can hold up to 500 sheets of media. Now, I don't have the high cap stacker loaded in the demo room right now, but I think in the coming days, what may happen is we may end up turning this 90 degrees so that we can dock the stacker and really show off the productivity of being able to neatly stack 500 pages at a time. In your larger offices, that might be the fit for this particular device. Hopefully this introduction, this high level overview will help you. So that's what I had for you.